they're curious. They click on a little link. They see a little side, ad. And there are even cartoon game sites that have hidden links to pornography sites. And we've written about those on our blog, protectyoungminds.org. So it's important for parents to be vigilant about this. And I also really appreciate the work that Covenant Eyes is doing. I've written for them before, and we work with them. So we're really grateful for the work that they do, because it is important to put filters on as much as possible to filter, especially for young children. Now, they also have accountability programs, and so it's a great overall package deal, and there's a lot they're coming out with as well. So a big shout out for Covenant Eyes. However, kids need an internal filter. You can filter your devices, you can try to filter the internet, but you need children to install an internal filter, right? I just got a little message from a friend of mine who's I'm sorry. She says, it's not easy keeping up with technology. I'm hoping that my children's internal filter will keep them away from things I miss. And so that's really important to be able to do that.
It is, because when they have that
children.
No, absolutely. Because when they do have that internal filter as well, then it's also at a friend's house, on the school bus, all those other situations where the filter may not be in place. But now we're talking about a friend's phone, a friend's computer. They're at someone's house. They do need that internal filter so they can help monitor themselves when that filter on their phone or computer at a friend's house isn't there.
Exactly. In our book, we use an example of rat poison. The bait smells and tastes great to rodents, but once eaten, it starts to kill them. But if the rat could identify the pellets, as poison, it could say, that's poison, and it could run away. So we need to train our kids to recognize and reject pornography before their brains get poisoned by it. And again, to be safe in the digital age, kids need to develop their own internal filter.
I agree with that. And, you know this, and I know this, and we work with, like I said, men and their spouses and singles. And we have a lot of parents who contact us for education and for help, because pornography, it's a real addiction, and it's very similar to a chemical addiction to drugs and alcohol and the effect that it has on the brain. Do you talk about that in your book, or is that more on your website?
Well, we talk about it in both places. And in the book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn-Proofing Today's Young Kids, we talk about the brain science. We tell them that they have two brains, and we tell them that the feeling brain is the one that's really curious about pornography, but it doesn't know right from wrong. So they need to use their thinking brain and keep their thinking brain in charge so that they can make good decisions. And it's the thinking brain, that prefrontal cortex in the front of your, right behind your forehead is your prefrontal cortex, and that's your executive center. And that's where you learn right from wrong, and that's where you learn to make good decisions and make good choices. And so as we teach children about their thinking brain and their feeling brain, and they can learn to use their thinking brain to reject pornography. There is a lot of overwhelming science that shows that pornography can become an actual chemical addiction in the brain. And in fact, the American Society of Addiction Medicine revised their definition of addiction back in 2011 to include behavioral addictions like gambling and pornography. So many experts feel that porn addiction is even more difficult to overcome than a drug addiction because more areas of the brain are affected by the chemicals produced by sexual arousal. So again, it's the brain making its own drug, and we need to teach children how their brains work and how they can use their brain to protect their brain. I've even heard from several therapists that use our book with their adult clients, their adult, sex and porn addict clients, because it just explains addiction in such a simple and clear way. So anytime you can give good information to a child, you're going to empower them, right? Knowledge is power.
That's true. Yeah, we've learned a lot about the brain as well being in this field. And, the limbic system is actually where the addiction takes place. And that prefrontal cortex, which is actually the reasoning power, sometimes gets overridden. It's like the limbic system is the Ferrari, the prefrontal cortex has the bicycle brakes. And so sometimes it's a little difficult to slow down that limbic system. So what we help and we educate people on is to learn what's going on in the limbic system and how that can be changed in conjunction with the prefrontal cortex. So we do work a lot with the brain and educating people about that. And you're right that there's on our Facebook page, Unashamed by Grace, there's actually 3 pictures. The first one is a normal brain. It's like smooth, like a billiard ball. The second one is a cocaine addict, and the last one is a porn addict. And the brain scan of the porn addict is worse than the drug-addicted brain. So, and that's not just one example. I mean, if you actually, we've researched and we've seen, picture after picture that what it does to the brain, it turns it into almost like Swiss cheese. But it can be... it can be fixed and it can be changed. And over time, renewing the mind, it will, by rejecting pornography and fulfilling your heart and mind with the Word of God, it will again turn smooth, and you will start accessing your prefrontal cortex and using that to help make decisions rather than just that knee-jerk limbic system reaction, which is what people are doing with pornography. They're just not. They get to where it's almost like they can't think properly because that limbic system is so used to just being in charge. And anyway, so I could go and do a whole show just on the brain. It's so fascinating.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And the brain is plastic. They used to think, this has been one of the biggest discoveries in neuroscience in the last 10, 15 years, is that the brain is not static. It's plastic, and it can recover, and it can change. And, when you said a porn-addicted brain looks like Swiss cheese, it's because the parts of the brain have shrunk. Parts of the prefrontal cortex have shrunk because they haven't been using it. And the limbic system is what's taken over. It's hijacked the brain. And so you're right about that. And when you can teach a young child those simple concepts about the brain and how they can protect it. We teach children about a lot of other things, right? About how to stay safe when they go outside, how to look both ways when they're crossing the street, and all kinds of other safety tips. We live in a digital age. It's not going away. And we need to teach our kids how to be safe, on the digital highways and streets that they will be a part of.
Yes. Well, I know that, we've talked a lot today about talking to our children. So I really want parents to hear from you. What should they do? What should the children do when they're exposed to pornography? I know you mentioned a can-do plan in your book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Can you explain that can-do plan again?
Sure. And I just want to say, if you go to our website, protectyoungminds.org, you can get a free copy of this can-do plan if you subscribe to our website. So I can just briefly go through it. So can stands for close your eyes. So you want to teach your child to immediately close their eyes, turn away, because the longer you stare at an image, the more it's, burned into your brain. So you want to reduce the time that they look at the image. Close your eyes. And then A is always tell a trusted adult. It's important to tell someone because secrecy is what fuels addiction. And kids, they have an innate sense that this is shameful, and they don't often go and tell their parents what they've seen. Yeah, that is the exception. So unless you've already talked to them and asked them to come and tell you. So we teach kids, always tell a trusted adult. Come and tell me right away. And I will just tell you that if I see something while I'm doing research, I really try to avoid it. But every once in a while, if I see something pop up, I will do the same thing. I will tell my husband right away, I saw something. This is kind of what I saw. I won't describe it in detail, but I will be accountable to someone else. I just feel like we all need to practice that kind of accountability. None of us wants to get pulled into this. So N stands for name it when you see it. So again, this is using that prefrontal cortex, that thinking brain, because when you label something, you are using your thinking brain, and then you can more clearly reject it. So if someone sees a pornographic image and they say, that's pornography, then they have more power to reject it. Because imagine when you see or someone sees a very sexualized image, the limbic system or the feeling brain is already engaged. And even young children can have a physical reaction to seeing a very sexualized or pornographic picture. But when you name it, then you give control back to your thinking brain. So you're switching from your feeling brain, which may even be aroused, to your thinking brain. So name it when you see it. So these 3 steps, CAN, close your eyes, always tell a trusted adult, and name it when you see it. Those are the 3 steps you do. You teach a child to do, and even adults, right? We want to do the same thing when we see any kind of pornography. The last 2 steps, the D and the O, is to help children deal with the memories. Pornography makes very strong memories. It's shocking. And so they need a plan that will help them, maybe you can't say forget them, but minimize their impact. So when that image pops up in their brain, that memory pops up in their brain, they need to learn to distract themselves away with other thoughts, something that's exciting to them. So I don't know about you, Joanne, but I love to go snorkeling in Hawaii.
Oh,
I don't get to do
amazing.
it very often. I've only done it a couple times, but I love it. It's so peaceful, and I love to look at the fish. And there's nothing more that I would prefer to do if I go somewhere tropical than to snorkel and see the beautiful tropical fish. And so that's where I go in my mind. If a pornographic image pops up, I pretend I'm looking and snorkeling and seeing those fish. Now, obviously, a little kid, that's not going to do it for them. Every child is different, right? So I don't know what your children were interested in, but what excited them. But this is part of the plan. You come up with what is exciting. So, for example, like what would your son say was exciting or thrilling to him that he could think about?
I don't even have to give it any thought. It'd be military, anything military or war. That's exactly where he would go. He should have probably been born in about 1925 and served in World War II. He knows everything and anything about World War I and II. Those are his specialties. So we call him Grandpa. That's his nickname. So that's exactly.
So he could go and distract himself by plotting a battle, or thinking about a type of weaponry, or strategy, something like that. Another child that loves to go horseback riding, or loves to do any like cars or trucks or flying, whatever floats their boat, right, is what you want them to think about. Also physical activity. So if a child is got something coming up in their mind and they can't seem to shake it, teach them to go do something physical.
That's what I was thinking.
Often, or maybe
sports,
yeah,
or dance. A lot of people like dance, sports. Those are things that they could also, that children just fall in love with if that's their particular hobby.
Yeah, or they could go. Maybe they have an instrument that they love to play. Play the guitar or play the piano or something until that image is gone. And what they are doing is actually rerouting and rebuilding a neural pathway.
That's right.
Because the more you think about something, the stronger that